Hello, Sherene, and welcome to the Foster Your Passion podcast. Take
Hi,
two.
Haley. Thanks for having me back again
Yes,
from 5
no one
minutes
really
ago.
needs to know that it was take two, but I think it just sort of adds to the humor of the shit that goes on behind the scenes when you're
Yes.
spending the first 20 minutes of your conversation trying to get volume and things to work. So here we are, finally working, up and running. And so you and I met years ago. I don't even remember how we met. so,
Through Alana.
but did we meet? Do you remember?
Yes, we met through Alana. Alana.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, um, I was intrigued with you from the beginning because I love people that are creative and are trying to do things that are out of the box and unique. And I always felt like your company was so unique and so different. And we can get to what you do. But the reason why you're on the podcast today is because you just went through something so extraordinary that not a lot of people would have seen to fruition. And I'm so freaking impressed by you and so blown away that as you were coming to the end, I'm like, I need to interview her because I want to hear about how this 100-day challenge went. So let's start with you giving like a quick background on who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump into the juicy stuff.
Sure. Okay, so my name is Sherene Strausberg, and my business is called 87th Street Creative. And it is a business, freelance business doing motion graphics design, graphic design, animation. It's a little bit, has lots of different terms for it, but it's basically making animated marketing videos. So when you have a product to sell or a story to tell, animated motion graphics is a great way to do that.
Awesome. And I
I
love your
started the
videos.
business. Yeah, I was going to say, I started the business 6 years ago when I was living on West 87th Street, hence the name.
Hence the name. I love it. And so how'd you do through the pandemic?
The first, I would say, 6 months of the pandemic were a total nightmare. I had three very young children, one of which at the time wasn't even potty trained yet, and still taking naps. So there were definitely some challenges with school being shut down, and work went from like 100 to zero in like 24 hours. And it took a long time to get unemployment set up. So it was definitely a struggle. There was some challenges, but after that 6 months, things started turning around. First of all, to get through that 6 months, I took on a personal passion project. And we can probably talk about that in about a year, but basically, I'm creating an animated short film. And hopefully, it will be getting into film festivals sometime in 2022. So that helped me get through that initial 6 months because I needed something. And then come fall, September, things started to turn around. My phone started ringing again. The emails started coming through. And I really focused a lot on networking in that 6 months. And the seeds of that networking are really sprouting this year. And I'm getting just a huge number of projects and opportunities and new clients, new projects. I'm now doing a campaign for Walmart, which I would have never dreamed about doing a year ago. So yeah, the pandemic has been highs and lows for sure.
Wow, that is awesome. And I can't tell you how many people I have heard talk about that they launched a passion project during the pandemic. So many people had like either took a pivot and said, I think it was like a big realization for people like, I don't really want to go back to doing what I was doing, or I've really been wanting to do this. And oh my God, I now have the gift of time. And so I'm going to start trying to do that now. So good for you. That's awesome. I can't wait to hear about that. So let's jump into this 100-day challenge. Can you talk about a little bit about how you found out about it? I think your friend kind of pulled you into it with her, which I think is amazing. It talks a lot to the accountability aspect of, getting stuff done. I just did a 30-day challenge, which pales in comparison to 100 days. But tell me how that started.
Yeah, so I for about a month at the beginning of the year, I was in this group called Full Harbor Membership, which is like a sort of an accountability group that, with of motion designers that work together to have weekly meetings. And during that, I only was a member for a month, but there's, annual membership. And during that month, I met a woman named Sarah Wade. We had actually met beforehand, but in the group we became more friendly. And we basically, well, she had told me that there's this thing called the 100-day challenge. And it was started by one of the founders of the Pentagram graphic design studio in New York City. And it was just this idea of like people who either are not creative and want to start a creative habit, or are creative but still want to have an extra push to do something else, something that's, sort of a defined daily habit. And so I looked into it. It sounded interesting. And she said she was going to do it, but she was going to focus on doing animated coding for motion graphics. So we had different projects. They were really, in a sense, totally unrelated, but it didn't matter. It was just having an accountability partner to then post the work daily on Instagram or anywhere on social media. And so she said, I'm going to do it. And I said, I'm going to do it. And that's kind of how it started.
Whew, okay, so talk to me a little bit about the evolution throughout it, because I look at your pictures from the beginning and I look at your pictures from the end,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you have them in front of you, but if you could show them, because we are on video, but if I mean you they're so transformational. Like it was so incredible because even like towards I mean, even when you were on day 60 or like somewhere around there, I was like, oh my God, she still has 40 days to go. Like I was feeling it for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's how you were feeling, but I'm curious to
Yeah.
hear. Take us through that journey.
Sure, sure. Okay, so first, I do need to mention that one of the best pieces of advice I got from another colleague of mine, Pedro, who's a motion designer in Florida, is he's like, get a really crappy sketchbook. Like, it doesn't need to be this beautiful leather bound thing. It just needs to have nice paper, and that's it. As long as the paper quality is good. So I found this. First of all, it has 100 pages, which I thought was great. So I couldn't skip around or mess up and tear a paper out. I really just had to go with it. And it's also it folds over in half, which is nice. And all I said was I'm going to do pencil and paper, and that was it, and that was the rule. So I just remember that I started out with day one just drawing my couch that's actually behind me right now. Um, so one of the things I did is I set a daily calendar invite so that I knew at 9 p.m. every night I had to draw. And at first, it was really just like, okay, draw what's in front of me. And then I kind of went into drawing some faces, and I wanted to practice, different body parts. So it was like eyes and ears and nose and mouths. And then I started getting into hands and, full faces and expressions. But
Okay,
I
so
was
I love
really,
that comparison on your full faces because you went like there was a beginning, that one that you just showed, which was the full faces, and then towards the end, your faces took on like so much more definition. I
yeah.
mean, it really, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. I was really happy with like the progress I was seeing. I also love to draw hands, so I was drawing hands and fingers and arms, and I was also taking some lessons online. I found like a really great podcast and artist named Lisa Bardot at Bardot Brushes, and I was taking her tutorials. That was great. I also tried to tie it into something that was going on in the real world. So it was like the year of the bull for Chinese New Year. Even though my bulls are terrible, I'm really hoping for year of the snake next year, which is a lot easier to draw. Then started doing action shots. Then I actually started getting into portraits, and some of them were better than others. I think my George Washington was pretty strong.
That
Um,
was pretty, that was really good.
and then I sort of really started noticing some magic on day 40. And I had just finished reading Cheryl Strayed's book, Wild. And I did the cover, I did the boot. And around this time, I reached
That's
out
awesome.
to a drawing instructor I had had in school like 15 years ago. And I said to him, I'm really struggling. Like drawings for the last 40 days are pretty terrible. And what he said to me is like, the boot is good and you really got down the form and the shape. And he really tried to help me focus and realize what was good and working in that, and to take that into the final 60 days. And that was really helpful. And I started doing practicing of more techniques. Like here's a practice of texture and shape and form. Here's another one. Wait, um, practicing like different ways that positions of bodies and poses. I simply did this. I mean, this was like to me such a fun day, even though it's not a great drawing. It's showing 6 different poses. These were all done very quickly. And it's to
Yeah.
practice very quickly, understanding like, lines of motion. Um, and then, um, and then it just kept going on from there. I started doing a lot of nature and outdoor shots. And oh, here's another one where I was talking about with doing like shading and form and understanding how to draw 3D on a 2D plane. And
Hmm.
then kind of went on from there. And I started drawing my kids a lot. This is my daughter doing ballet. Um, I don't know. I feel like I'm going on too much. So um,
No, but I love it. So tell me a little bit about like when did you start getting was there ever a time in this process where you were like, "Ugh, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore?" Or I love that you called your people, right? So you called a drawing professor that you had to sort of give you some guidance, and I'm sure that was like a little refresher for you. And then on days where you needed your accountability partner, yeah, I'm sure you reached out to her, but were there times where you're like, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore.
I mean, there definitely has, there are days or feelings where that would come up, but you have that calendar invite that goes off at 9 p.m. and then it's like, well, it's time to draw. So there was accountability through a friend, but accountability also through my calendar. And then I
Mhm.
think, yeah, getting help from people. So reaching out to my old teacher. I also there was somebody who follows me on Instagram, who I've only met once over Zoom. He saw my work and he sent me a private message saying, "Hey, I really like what you're doing with this. Why don't you try doing this?" And he gave me some suggestions. And I was totally open to that help and encouragement. I mean, it's about taking criticism and not seeing it as criticism, but critique and help. And I definitely am of the mind of, it takes a village, not just for raising family and kids, but with raising your skill level. And that's how I saw it, is that if I want to get better, I've just got to keep at it. And so there was never really a moment of, oh, let's just give up. Um, so I want to keep going. I really want to just keep doing this. I think I want to do different mediums. I eventually want to start doing it with the Apple Pencil and doing it digital art, because that applies a little bit more to my work as a motion graphics designer. But
Mhm.
I don't think I want to stop, because it's the trajectory is good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, that leads to, a great next question, which is like, how do you tie this back into the motion graphics and the motion design?
Sure. I mean, like I said, I think, yeah, doing it into an opportunity where I can take the sort of basic art and design skills and then apply them to digital is great. But it's also about, especially with some of the stuff where it was character posing and faces and hands. A lot of that stuff is used in my motion graphics work, where you have to show characters and characters moving, and you have to show them, in sort of a believable 3D space, but you're on a 2D plane. So I think all of that can really apply to my work and my business.
Hmm. Awesome. And so it's been 2 days now since it ended, right? Or was it
Yes.
yesterday?
It ended
Okay. And are you
on,
still, did you take a break? Or are you still going?
yeah, no, I did take a break last night. And it's really funny because it's like, oh, well, how everyone said to me, like, why don't you just keep going? You've built the habit. Why not keep going? Which is somewhat true, but it's also like my house was a mess for about 100 days. And I spent like an hour last night cleaning. And it's like, that's what I need to do. I need to like clean like an hour a day to get my house in order. So I can either get really good at art or live in a clean house. I don't know, back and forth. I go back and forth, which one is better.
Right. Did you enroll your family in this challenge with you, or were you like, everyone's in bed, I'm doing it on my own, or did you have some
Mm,
internal cheerleaders?
yeah, no, there was definitely some internal cheerleaders. So the routine that basically happened was I would get my youngest, my 3-year-old, to bed by 8. So then I could focus on my older two kids who are a little bit more self sufficient in terms of getting themselves ready for bed and winding down, and they would both get into the drawings. My 9-year-old son, he also likes sketching and drawing, and he would sometimes draw with me. And toward the end of the challenge, my 6-year-old daughter also got into it, and you can see she got her sketchbook and she started doing her drawings and labeled them day one, day two, and I think she did, yeah,
Oh, so
keys
cute.
on day three, birthday cake, and then her bumblebee on day 5 was one of my favorite. So much so that I actually
So
did
cute.
post it. Oh, a
I saw
sword.
that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So these were good. So she made it through about the first 10 days, which is pretty amazing for a 6-year-old. So, um,
Absolutely. That is amazing for a 6-year-old. That's
so
awesome. Like, our kids,
yeah.
they mirror what we do, what we say, how we act, and, that's how you inspire little ones to figure out what their passions are, and I think that's amazing that your kids started doing it with you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and even the
Awesome.
3-year-old, although she isn't drawing quite yet, when she saw the drawings that I did of her, her face just lit up, and it was just like
Aw,
it was magical. Like, and I
aw.
actually I don't like to post my kids' faces on the front on social media, so it was always about finding that magical photo where they were their heads were turned, so I could photograph them, and that was really fun to see how to capture their essence and their expressions sort of without always seeing their full faces.
Mhm. I absolutely love it. So, are you gonna continue and do a new one?
Right. So I think the way I'm guessing there's 365 days in a year. So I'm assuming that they do it 3 times a year because this one started in January, or yeah, I think January, and then it went into May. And then I assume in like about 20 days they'll start it again. And I think I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Why not? It's been fun. I'm okay to take a break, but I'm okay to also start another one. Um, so yeah, stay tuned. We'll see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm here to support you on that next journey. I really just loved so much watching you go through this process and seeing the change from start to finish. It was a beautiful thing to be an outsider, but to feel like I was a part of it.
Awesome.
So,
Well, I love that. I mean, and that's the thing about social media is that you kind of never know who's watching and who's looking at it. Sometimes people look at it, but then they don't say anything. They don't comment. But then I'll get an email or I'll get a message or a phone call saying, "Oh, I've been seeing your work," and I'm like, "Really? I had no idea." And and as well as encouragement from you. I mean, you just never know who is really looking at your work, and it's funny. It's so it you kind of feel like, okay, we're on social media, and like there's the need for sort of approval and comments. And a friend of mine would put up a picture of her breakfast and get like 5,000 likes on it, and I would put up a drawing I spent an hour on and I would get about 15 likes. And I just keep reminding myself it's not about social media. That just happens to be where it's existing right now, or that's where it's being placed. But
mhm.
it's here in me, and it's my skill and my project, and it's about the work I'm doing, and where it goes and who sees it is not the most important thing.
No, definitely not the most important thing. But, one of the things that is amazing if you're using, and we can have an offline conversation about this, but if you're using the right hashtags um and your headers are more of a hook, you might be able to grow your audience while you're doing something like this, because one of the biggest pieces of social in the algorithm is consistency. And since you are consistently showing up for 100 days, it's a great way for you to grow a following. So,
Yeah, I realized that, and my business consultant said to me, she's like, "You can't stop. Why are you going to stop? Like you're building up your audience." So I know I got to keep going. And she also pointed out to me that I'm getting the most likes on the days that I draw animals. So clearly, there's a message there. And although I don't have pets of my own, I just need to get pictures of animals and draw more animals and bring out those animal lovers on social media.
absolutely. Well, I can connect you to Leslie's leashes because she could take pictures of dogs, you could draw them, and then she can share them, and you could both get some traction.
Sounds good.
So,
Yeah. I actually really like the idea of uh, collaborating for the purpose of social media growth. Sometimes I feel like I want to find a like a letterer, someone who creates like letters and fonts, and an opportunity where I can animate them, and strictly for the point of social media. So I think anytime where there's a collaboration, it's great. So yeah, I
no,
like that.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, do you recommend other people do challenges like this to help themselves grow? Give some advice to other foster women that might be considering challenge. I don't know if I told you this, but I mentioned in the beginning that I did this 30-day challenge of going live every day for 30 days. I did it into like a private Facebook group that was part of the challenge, so I wasn't posting them all publicly. And there were a few that I decided, like, oh, I'm going to download this one because I feel like it was pretty good to post publicly. But what I was trying to do was I wanted to make sure that when I do go live, I'm focusing on the camera and I'm looking into it. And like a lot of times, like on something like this where I can see you, and people can hear you, but where I can see you, like I'm looking at your picture instead of looking at the audience. But it's different when you're going live and you're talking to an audience. You need to be looking at the shiny green button, camera light on your computer. And then one of the things I realize I do, and I've heard it in my podcast before, and I see it on the videos that I've done, I was using a lot of ahs and ums and fillers, and I didn't. I my husband called it to my attention a couple of times. I'm like, really? And then we sat at dinner one night and we tested the kids, and we would drop a coin into a tin can every time they said like or ah. And so I was doing a recording one day and he was in the background and he kept like tapping something every time I did it. And it didn't matter because it was a recording that I wasn't necessarily going to use, but it called my attention to when I'm doing it and how I'm doing it. So I said to him, all right, I'm going to do this live challenge and I want you to do it with me so that we can hold each other accountable and get it done together. Because he has this funny thing that he does with this, I call it the podcast voice. So we'll go to start recording and he'll be like, so here's what and I'm like, who are you? Like, who is this person that just showed up on my microphone? It doesn't even sound like you. It's so weird. So I would make fun of him to get him to sort of like loosen up and, be okay with his own voice, which I guess he doesn't like so much. So he did it with me. Today was day 30, but and there were a couple of
Oh
days I
wow!
missed where like I
Congratulations!
went,
That's 30 days.
oh, thanks. So I was happy for it to be done. I couldn't imagine doing it for, 70 more days that I don't think I would be able to handle. But my goal actually is to start going live every day in my own social media. So while I ended today on day 30, I will continue to go live and make my ridiculous reels and do all the video stuff because that seems to be what's really driving a lot of attraction these days. But I do see the difference in terms of how I'm communicating and how I'm speaking and, being, without the ahs and ums and the knows. So anyway,
Uh,
that was my challenge.
Yeah, no, that's a great challenge, and I mean, as I say, I'm now really aware of this, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like it's public speaking is so important, and I noticed that I have a networking group that I'm a part of, and we have to do a 30-second commercial every week. It's part of BNI, and I really noticed that if you only have 30 seconds, don't waste 10 of them saying ums and oohs and ahs and likes and whatever. Um, so here's the thing, I guess, in terms of advice I would give people. Well, I think we've touched on a couple things already. I mean, one is I think, getting your family or your spouse or your significant other involved is definitely great. I think setting up a conducive environment to doing whatever it is you're going to do, whether if it's working at your computer and doing a project at your computer, then make sure that the time before you're going to start doing your challenge is away from your computer. Or if it's something that you're not going to be doing at your computer and going to be doing at your kitchen table, then make sure that your kitchen table is cleared and ready so that you can do what it is you want to do, and there's not going to be something interfering with that. Make sure all my pencils were nice and sharpened by the time I would go to sit down. um, I do think coming, having a regular space and place, time and a place where you're going to do it. I think also there's nothing wrong with sort of spending the time and day before you're going to do your challenge thinking about it. It's just, having a little bit of that mental preparation. So especially when it was like I knew that, okay, today's like a holiday and I'm going to want to do some sort of drawing in light of that holiday. So let's think about things during the day. So on Mother's Day, I was, seeing flowers everywhere. So I was like, oh, maybe I would draw something with flowers. I saw my kids all day, of course. So maybe something with my kids. Well, in the end, I realized that what I really wanted for Mother's Day was peace and quiet. So I drew a person of someone, shushing with their finger in their lips. So I think it helps when you have sort of some mental space, and it can be not while you're working, but maybe while you're just eating lunch or while you're showering, and you have that time to kind of use to brainstorm and come up with ideas. That I think is really helpful as well. And I think also to have a backup plan so that if you don't have time to mentally think about something all day, or there isn't a holiday or something to commemorate and do that day, have sort of a backup. So I had like a drawing book that just had lots of drawing lessons in it. And so it was like, if I just didn't have an idea for that day, I would just open up the book and do one of the lessons, and that was it, and it was fine. It was like a good sort of daily reminder of like how to do a new technique or a new skill within this overall skill of drawing.
Hmm. And would you recommend, if you did it again, would you make more of a schedule? So like lay out the 100 days and try to fill in some of the holes beforehand, or did you like the brainstorming kind of spur of the moment?
I like the brainstorming. I think that there it leaves room for some spontaneity, and
Hmm.
and I like that. And I also invited people to send me photos,
Yeah, I
and
love that.
um, and to give me the challenge of not being able to select the thing that I'm doing. So one of my friends, she sent me. Oh, am I going to be able to find this quickly? A uh, a, a I don't even remember the name of it. It's this type of palm tree. It's like I don't
Oh,
even know what this is. Oh, a ponytail palm is what she called it.
yes, yes.
And I was like, what is a ponytail palm tree? I have no idea. And so I just Googled it and I found a photo. I liked the photo, and it really was fun to draw something that was not even in my vocabulary. So I think also the spontaneity and not having it all planned out allows for, friends and family and Instagram fans to weigh in, which is nice. But if you're a planner, all the power to you. Do it. Anything to
Right.
get
I
through
love it.
it.
Yeah, and you know what I love that you didn't mention in the recap is the reminder. I think setting the reminder on your phone, like I used to have a reminder every morning when I woke up that it like to think of 3 things you're grateful for today. And even though like I didn't write them down in the app, it was still the reminder of, okay, as I'm getting ready and brushing my teeth, what am I grateful for? So it's that little ping of the reminder, because it's so easy to, just sort of like forget or blow it off. But I love that. I didn't do that for the challenge. And there were nights where it was like 10:30, my kids are finally in bed, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to do my video. And I would like come back downstairs, fix my hair. Cause like going live is like a whole production. Like, I can't be like makeup off and ready for bed.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but yeah,
that's
the reminder
that's
would have been key for me for sure.
yeah.
So,
I don't know if I could do going live. I did one reel on Instagram where I was live, and it was, or no, it wasn't it was a story. I did a story live, and it was terrible. I was like, I'm not doing myself. I'm going to do my artwork.
all
I
right,
also
maybe you
think
should
that
do the 30-day live challenge before your next live artwork kicks in. Like,
no way. I think also there's something to be said for working up to the challenge. So, although I did these 100 days, a year ago I did a 36 days of type, and for 36 days I
oh, I remember
drew
that.
every letter and every number. And then the year before that, I did Inktober, which is 31 days of ink drawing in October. So again, like those things, like they were challenging, and I learned a lot in that process. So by the time I got to this one, or 100 days, I was like, I think I can do it.
All right, awesome. We could be creative and do something where you draw every day live for like 2 minutes. You teach
Right.
a drawing lesson. I mean, you must have learned so much in terms of like how to make an eye, how to make lips, how to make, maybe do 5 days. I'm going to challenge you to do
Oh,
5 days.
oy, oy, oy.
But you don't even have to show your face. You just show yourself drawing for 5 days. That would
Yeah,
be
well,
fun.
the digital drawing that I want to start doing with the Apple Pencil, it's on Procreate, and what's really cool about Procreate is they show a, I forget what's the word for it, like it's a behind the scenes where they basically time lapse the entire drawing from a blank canvas to a finished piece. And that became hugely popular in the last few years when this app came out. It's like a $10 app, but it is magical in terms of being able to show process. And I really like that. And it's a little bit hard. I don't have like a camera set up to be able to show like myself drawing. And it's also hard. I actually like to draw in a fairly comfortable seat, and not really
Yeah.
like on the desk. And so there is
Yeah.
that challenge that I know I've seen people with like the whole camera set up and the halo light and all of the ring light, I guess. Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I know I'm not set up to do that quite yet. One day.
All right. All right. I'll rescind my challenge. You let me know when you're ready.
Okay. All right. Fair
All right.
enough.
Well, this was super fun. Thank you so. I try to keep them short, 30 minutes or so. So, because I know no one has time to listen, but if people do have time to listen, I don't want to keep them more than 30 minutes. But you dropped some amazing value in this. And I encourage everybody to do something that scares you or something that challenges you. Because if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And that was sort of the theme of our conversation today. So, I'm super proud of you. You did amazing. I really loved being a part of your journey. So I look forward to the next one. And thank you for giving me your time today to share your journey with all of my listeners.
Thank you. Thank you, Haley. This has been wonderful. I appreciate all your incredible encouragement and love and support. It's absolutely wonderful. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Don't go anywhere. Bye, everyone.